Hello everybody, this is Miss Darling in the studio. Welcome. I'm happy that you have joined me, and we're going to be discussing today another one of the artistic design styles. There are 12 design styles in the art world, but there are 13 design styles in the junk journal world. And I've already covered one of them, which was the diagonal style. I covered this in my very first video, so if you haven't seen that one, you can go to the channel and look for the very first upload, and it will cover how I made this gorgeous diagonal masterboard. I also have a link to it and other pertinent videos in the description box below this video, so you can find it that way as well. This was the diagonal design style, and today we're going to be dealing with the horizontal design style. And so to prepare you for that, I want to show you some images. These were largely taken off the internet, and I was looking for not only horizontal styles in the art world, but also the junk journal world. I found a few I'm going to share with you. This first one is a horizontal design style from the art world. It's a fine art painting illustrating the style with bold color and changing heights of the horizontal stripes. So you can see that there is a difference. The two orange stripes are wider than the rest of them. It's anchored well with strong color at the bottom to visually support the strength of the orange stripes above. The next one is also a horizontal design style, and this has wavy, curvy lines, and it is another great example. Make sure you note the uneven widths and the irregular movements. It still reads, nevertheless, as a horizontal painting. In this next image, I don't know where this came from, whether it is part of some junk journal presentation or what, but we have these rulers that, of course, are laid down in a horizontal fashion. The main interest is that you've got numbers mixed with different sizes of the numbers. Varying rulers of size and style combined together in this example of a horizontal design style. Now in this fourth image, we have horizontal lines in the background as well as the foreground, but not all of the foreground. And it's combining horizontal design with other elements that are not horizontal, and that's perfectly okay. You're going to see me doing that as well, because there is such a strong and large section of the masterboard that has horizontal stripes. And also because there's horizontal stripes in some of the small ephemera put on top, I would designate this a horizontal design style masterboard. Okay, this other one is quite obvious, I think. We have a junk journal page layout which combines various sections of horizontal lined papers, and it is nicely composed and turned into a masterboard that you can see could easily be folded in half or cut in half to make two smaller pages. It's a good example of what you can do just by pasting various elements together in a sensible construction, and fills the page. It looks very balanced to me, and I think it's a good example of that kind of a masterboard. And the next one, we have our bees or insects that are lined up in a line of 3. And this creates a horizontal line that is strong enough, I think, against the background to perhaps classify it, certainly give it a consideration for being in the horizontal style grouping. In this last image of the ones I found on the internet, we have in the upper left corner what looks like, I don't know, maybe colored straws that are glued together and pasted down. I don't know if it's a painting or not. The one below it, however, is a fine art painting with interesting horizontal lines, and notice how striking that very thin but light beige line is toward the bottom. Not too close to the bottom, but perfectly positioned in that lower third quadrant, and gives it a nice balanced asymmetrical feeling. On the upper right side, this clearly is a board that a junk journalist put together, and I put it in the horizontal category in spite of that giant and sign in the top left and the word family there. I think that there's also a row of small vertical pieces that right about through the middle there, but I think that it's still, you've got very obvious horizontal lines running through it from end to end, and I think it qualifies for a horizontal design. I'm not making any comment on whether I think it's great or not. I'm just showing it to you as an example. And below that, we have someone who took a page of music and framed it, and I think they're just maybe displaying the framed image on top of some other papers. I don't think that is all meant to be a masterboard of any kind. But I wanted just to show you that the musical staff is horizontal. In spite of all the notes and phrasing that's going on, it remains a horizontal styled image. And don't be afraid of combining different styles. As I go through this series of 13 videos, each one dedicated to a specific style, you're going to learn what they all are, and then once they're embedded within you, you can have a lot of fun playing around and mixing them together to create even more unusual looks than you ever thought you could. Be sure and watch all of the videos as they come out. Now, because I didn't have very many examples in the junk journal world to show you of horizontal design, I had to kind of pull back and go through some of my own previous work. So I've pulled out a few examples from some of my junk journals that I did last year. And this first one, if you notice, there's decks in a row, along with a line of washi tape below that that goes clear across the page. And because the decks are all in a row, forming a horizontal feeling, and particularly because it's at the bottom and kind of gives you the feeling of a landscape or a waterscape, maybe they're on a lake or something and swimming by, I place this in the horizontal style category. Next, we have on the left side, the background is kind of a Florentine design with calligraphy, or I think it's calligraphy. It's script anyway that runs horizontally across the page in strategic horizontal lines. Now, there of course is a nice lady ephemera that's placed on top, and she would fall in what's called the portrait style. And so you see I've combined portrait style with horizontal style for that side of the page. Then on the right side of the page, I have lined paper, and then I embellished it a little bit in the upper right corner, but it is lined, horizontal lines running across, making it a perfect journaling page. The two together I have classified as horizontal style. And in this next one, I'm not really going to deal with what's on the left. I just wanted to show you what's on the right, which is again lined paper but there is a ghosted image. It's a ghosted vertical image that is behind the lines. You can just barely see it, making it very suitable for someone to journal on. Just because there's a vertical image behind it doesn't mean that it changed its style. It's still a horizontal style page. And then lastly, this is an example of a masterboard I just recently created and have embellished. And again, I'm showing it because it's a perfect example of me working with horizontal style, vertical style, inverted styles, sideways styles, and everything under the sun, pulling it together into one cohesive board to be cut up into smaller parts using other bits of ephemera. So when you're doing a masterboard that you intend to cut up into smaller sections, you need to make sure it's quite busy everywhere so that it doesn't matter where the cuts are made. You're still going to have a very interesting looking piece when all is said and done. Okay, we are going to work on a horizontal masterboard design today. And I've pre-picked a bunch of papers here that I think are going to look nice together. We'll see which ones I ultimately use. And the first thing I want to do is to set it up where I can utilize my grid back here to help me get things straight. Okay, I want to first kind of divide up my background sheet roughly into thirds. So a little less than 3 inches per third. So we got about a little less than 3 inches to divide it into thirds, but I want to bottom weight the lowest third. So I'm going to come up 1, 2, 3. I'm going to go 3.5 inches. And then if I come down roughly 3 inches, that puts us about here. At this point, I'm not planning on a focal point, so I won't worry about plotting that in. I'm just going to now start layering in some of these papers. Not going to think about it too much. I think I want to add some darker papers. Hang on. Okay. So far, to give you a little idea of my thinking, I want a lot of darker shades and tones toward the bottom, so that gives visual weight to what's above it. And then I'm also trying to kind of sprinkle the colors throughout as I go up and have a nice variety from darks to mediums to lights, and also vary the width of my papers. I can do that by either cutting them at different widths or overlapping in order to make a previous width smaller than it was. So this is some of the things that I'm thinking about as I make my decisions. So I think I have a pretty good distribution of the yellow tones. I've got green in all 3 quadrants. I have black in all 3 quadrants. Heavier on black down here than up here. I've got differing widths. I have 3 narrow strips here together, which I like, which is different from these wider single strips down here. And I think it's coming along quite well. I'm quite pleased so far. I'm going to snip off these overhanging sections. I will need to trim off the yellow out there. Some of my papers were 12 inches wide and some of them are 8.5 or 11 inches or less, and so that's why I have some of them coming out over my core sheet in the back, and some of them are not. And but I don't worry about that because that all gets trimmed off anyway. Now kind of look at it from different angles to see just how well our color distribution and our value changes are, whether it feels reasonably balanced. Feels the most balanced from this viewpoint because I'm heavier in the darker shades down here, and that was on purpose to bottom weight this as a double spread masterboard, and it doesn't work quite as well if you look at it at this perspective, because this side feels more dominant than this side, and that's a little bit of an imbalance here. We get a feeling of it being a little top heavy, and that is what happens when you deliberately bottom weight rather than trying to do everything kind of an equal value from top to bottom. So now I'm going to just trim off those edges, which are bothering me a little bit. And there we have a horizontal masterboard in the horizontal style, and it could be left as it is. I will leave it for what it is right now and photocopy, and then I will come back and embellish on my photocopy, and so I do not ruin the basic masterboard as we see it now. I'm quite happy with it, and I hope you were able to follow along with what I was doing and why. If you have any questions, please post them in the comments and I'll be happy to answer them. Okay, here's my original, and I went down and photocopied it, and I originally copied it on yellow stock, the same as I had originally used, and I lost my white stripes. Then I reprinted it on white stock so I can preserve my white stripes going across, and it also doesn't look as quite as yellow dominant on the white stock as it did on the yellow. One other quick thought, I thought I better maybe start mentioning, I am just in the process of preparing lined pages that feature the journals, the Amazon envelope journals that my other series has been focused on. We are in part 8. I just uploaded that today, and there's more to come on that, but I'm making journal pages that can be used for those, and it's got some of the designs and ephemera that I used in my journal, and so this will be made available in my Etsy shop for those that are interested. So I wanted to just show you a few of the pages And you can see that the designs are faint enough that someone can easily journal on top. And then I'm also going to include some just plain lined pages so that it's easy to put your own designs, either ghosted in back of the lines or even glued on top. So it doesn't matter if you have a computer with a digital photo creation software on it. You can print off lined sheets, and I've even sometimes run my lines through on one pass in my printer and then come back on a second pass and add something on top. So you have lots of options. You're not limited in any sense if you don't have a lot of software that other people have. So just work with what you have, and if it takes 2 or 3 printings to come out with what you're looking for, that's perfectly okay. I've done it, and I'm sure other people have too. Especially I was doing it before I started to learn how to understand and use my photo editing software. So now I do it both ways. Just depends on what I'm working with and what I think is the easiest, quickest way to achieve it. So just wanted you to know that's coming. You can check my Etsy shop. I'll try to get them up there and available as soon as possible, but give me a chance, okay? Well guys, I thought I was going to be able to include the embellishment of this horizontal design style masterboard for you in this video, but it just got too long, so I am having to break it up into 2 parts. So please comment back and watch part 2, where you will see me embellish this masterboard in 2 different ways, and you'll see my process and hear my thinking and why I did what I did. And that will be in part 2, so don't miss it. Thanks for being here. Remember, there are resources in my shop and below this video in the description box. And so for now, this is Miss Darling calling this a wrap. Bye-bye.